An interesting new trade target at the edge has popped up for the Chicago Bears. We're going to talk about that trade target and why it may actually fit kind of the mindset that Ryan Poles has used for acquiring players to the Chicago Bears. We're also going to dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host here, Hayes. If you want to follow me, you can do so right off the top at CEO Hayes. That's CEO Haize. If you want to follow the show, you can do so at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform that we're on. But let's go ahead and get into the content for today before we jump into the mailbag. And that is Bryce Huff popping up as a potential trade target for teams and the Chicago Bears. Not necessarily too many rumors directing him directly to the Bears, but I do think that this could be an interesting target that pops up. And the reason why is that Brian Huff kind of fits the mold of players that you look at that Poles would acquire around this time. Now, it really depends on the assets that he would have to give up. But when you look at Bryce Huff, 6'3", 255 pounds, comes in at that edge position, but he's on a team right now that has so much depth at that position that he could find himself being the odd man out. And if that's the case, right, if that is the case, the Bears could be in a prime position to slide in, get him at a position of need, and come in and make him one of their defensive ends on this team. So when you look at the fact that Carl Lawson just signed an extension, not extension, he restructured his contract with the Philadelphia Eagles on top of that. And when you look at Bryce Huff, he's been pushed down to probably the fifth defensive end on their roster. Now, Huff has shown some ability. Is he a knockdown, drag out, just amazing acquisition? No, but when you look at what he's been able to do, he led the NFL in pressure percentage for all players that played at least 150 pass rushing possessions last season at putting the pressure on the quarterback, getting pressure on there 21.3% of the time. Again, not any type of huge acquisition at all, but it could be one that if Ryan Poles goes through training camp, maybe even through preseason, and sees, hey, we need a little bit more of that edge position, he absolutely could come in and play a factor for the Chicago Bears. When you look at the fact that he hasn't been used hugely, but the fact of the matter is he's gotten at least 2 sacks in every season he's played in the NFL, only 3 seasons in so far, is still extremely young at only 25 years old, and could present an option for the Chicago Bears to go after to add some young talent to that defensive line and really take some chances to evaluate it. Now, with this, it all comes down to, and I said the Eagles earlier. I'm sorry, it's the Jets. I don't know why I said the Eagles. But with that being said, it all comes down to what the price is, right? How much would the Chicago Bears have to pay to get this player in there? And that's what Brian Poles is going to try to measure out. But this could be a similar move that we saw the Bears use N'Keal Harry to get N'Keal Harry. Do a similar move now at the defensive edge position to bring him into this team. So that's really what you're kind of looking at when it comes to the Chicago Bears potentially maybe going after Bryce Huff. And if they do, we'll see. Again, not necessarily anything that you look at and you say this is an amazing acquisition by Poles, but it could be one that if he comes in and does prove something that, he could become a part of your rotation. But again, it's interesting. This one popped up on Bleacher Report, so I wanted to talk about that here, that the potential of the Bears maybe going after him, and we'll end up seeing. We do think that at some point the Bears are probably going to make an acquisition at the edge, but as I said in yesterday's episode, as we go further along this process, I'm more so thinking that we may go through at least training camp first for them and the coaching staff to really take a look at what we have on this defensive line before we give up any type of assets to bring in anybody else. So be on the lookout for that. Let me know what you guys think. Is Bryce Huff a okay acquisition for the Chicago Bears at that edge position, depending on what they may have to give up to get him? All right, let's go ahead and move into the main portion of today's episode, and that is the mailbag. Because it's Friday, this first voicemail, this one's from Mike.
Yo, Hayes, how you doing? It's your boy Mike. Got a question for you. What is greater, Patrick Mahomes or the extreme awfulness of Matt Nagy? Do you think it's possible if Andy Reid lets Matthew Nagy call the plays, remembering that he is not an idiot, would that give us a chance to actually beat KC? Anyway, love you, bro. Love the show. Keep up the good work. Love listening to y'all. Catch you next time. Bear down, baby.
All right. And Mike, talks about can Patrick Mahomes' awesomeness be overtaken by the awfulness of Matt Nagy. Here's the thing. Matt Nagy, if he is calling plays for the Kansas City Chiefs next season, it could possibly help the Bears be in a position to go over the Chiefs. And I think overall, when you look at the brand of defense that the Bears are slated to play, how good we could be in coverage as well with our secondary and our linebacking core that we brought in, one of the best, no, the best, I think, pass coverage linebacker in the game in the building, and hopefully what we also hope to get from that defensive line, the new weapons on offense. I'm not going to go into that game saying that it's an automatic loss for the Bears. I think the Bears are going to be able to compete with anyone. I think we're going to see a team that even in losses is going to be able to stay in most games. But the biggest question is can they start converting those to wins? Last season, they couldn't. Last season, almost every close game, the Bears ended up losing, and we hope that they can start converting that to wins this season. But as far as can the Bears beat KC, it's hard without seeing how many changes we've made on this team. It's really hard to say that without seeing it. But here's what I'll say. As of right now, I'm giving the Bears a chance against anyone. Like I've said before, too, it's going to take this Bears offense, team overall, a while to start clicking and firing on all cylinders. I really do believe that. But once we do, I think we're going to be one of those teams that even in games that we lose, we competed and we played with heart and we were in it, right? And we're going to lose some games just by the nature of inexperience. We're going to lose some games just by the nature of not really being, battle tested in those types of back and forth games and having to dig it in and pull it out, and just, youth and experience. And as we go through those growing pains and we come together as a team more, that's going to really tell the story of the season for the Chicago Bears. And that growth is actually, for me at least, going to be fun to watch because, we'll get to see this team take that path, right? To go from a team that won 3 games to going to that team that hopefully learns to win and learns to pull it out. And then over the course of years becomes that team that then becomes the team that you can bet on and say, no, we know with this factor and that factor that we're going to be in the game. We're going to find our way to dig in, and we got a coaching staff that we can trust. That story is going to start telling itself this season, hopefully with growth and development. And that's my thought on that one. I think we could stand the test to beat anyone, and that includes the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to be in most of those games. And I hope that we're just going to be a team that can compete, and teams are going to feel it after they play the Chicago Bears next season. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one is from the 210.
Bobby, C-Dub, them cognac boys, and don't forget about Hayes. What's happening, fellas? This is your man, Marisa Assad, coming at you for the first time, man, trying to holler at you about them Chicago Bears. You feel me? Look here, man. We talking about them Bears, baby. Look here. The most important thing coming up this year is not the defensive end. It's not the defensive rush. What the most important thing is for this upcoming season, man, is can Justin Fields see the field? That's right. Can he scan the field and find the open receiver? You dig? I know we got the offensive line fixed, man. We got Darnell right on the right side, man. We switched it all around. You dig? And we got my man, Braxton Jones getting a little stronger on the left side, man. He's going to be able to anchor down this year. And the middle is solid now. It's solid now. So, Fields, it is very important, man, that you get that ball out of your hand on time. You dig? To the right wide receiver who be wide open, man, for a touchdown, man. You got to see him, man. You got to go 1, 2, 3. And when that back foot hit the ground right there, that ball got to be out the band. You got to be out your hand, bro. You got to get that ball out your hand, man. You can't be sitting back there patting and looking and patting and looking. You dig? You got to get that ball out. So this year, Justin Fields, my man, see the field, my brother. One love, y'all. Peace.
All right, and one of the biggest things that we're looking for as far as this season is the growth from Justin Fields. And I love this voicemail because you're spot on. Justin Fields learning to scan the field. Justin Fields learning to get to the open receiver. Justin Fields learning kind of the patience, right? When you look at great quarterbacks in the NBA, that patience level eventually comes to where they trust, right? They have the trust that their guys are going to get open. They have that patience. They have that foresight. And that's something that we just haven't put Justin Fields in a good enough position to be in to learn thus yet in his NFL career. And I think with the improvements on the offensive line, Justin Fields' own personal growth, he's going to start learning to trust. And it's not going to be initial, right? It's not going to be right away. Justin Fields isn't going to come in on day one unless they just have an amazing training camp and preseason. But he's not going to come in and he's not going to have that muscle memory of not realizing, hey, the moment he feels the plays breaking down, let me take off with my legs, because that's what he's had to do since he's been the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. But I do think that over the course of this season, seeing that growth with him, seeing the growth of that offensive line, him realizing he can trust that offensive line more than what he trusted it last season. He's not going to have to run for his life night in and night out. We're going to see him go through those progressions. We're going to see him slowly start to learn how to go through those progressions then even quicker, right? I think sometimes people, right or in wrong, expect Justin Fields to like, oh, well, he's holding on to the ball too long. And it's like, well, he hasn't really had the time to build in that muscle memory or that trust to say, hey, I got time to survey the field. No, because he takes his eyes off downfield. Next thing he knows, he got a linebacker in his face trying to take him down, right? So keeping Justin Fields upright, having better protection for him is what's going to allow that. And that is one of the biggest things that we're looking for this season. The growth from the offensive line, how he trusts that offensive line, and then how he grows as a passer. For elite level quarterbacks in the NFL, you have to be able to grow as a passer and as a game manager, being able to really control that pace of that offense and to pick apart the defense. And we haven't seen that with Justin Fields' arm yet. And so as he starts growing in him, right, and he starts developing that part of his game as a quarterback, the sky's really the limit for him and the Bears offense. I mean, I just had an episode a couple of days ago in which I was basically waxing poetic about just how excited I am about seeing the growth of the Chicago Bears offense and what they can eventually become and the ceiling of this Bears offense. And they have an opportunity now, luckily enough, to start showing that, right? And so Justin Fields' growth in that area, him being able to, operate and see where his guy's going and having better weapons as well, because that's another big thing also. When you look at having now DJ Moore and a full offseason of Chase Claypool, hopefully Darnell Mooney's fully healthy, and then do not overlook Robert Tonyan and Cole Kmet and how they're going to also help Justin Fields, especially more so as he's learning to trust, to go through those progressions, to scan that field. As he's learning to do that, having solid tight ends that can that can catch the ball as well and be utilized in that receiving game, that's going to help his growth as well. And I think that the Bears have finally put him in a position for us to start evaluating him as that passer. And so, yeah, that is the next step for Fields. He's shown that he can have game-changing ability to make plays with his foot. You add with his feet. Whether you add in the passing game to that, and then as he starts getting more comfortable in that, and he learns that the running game that he has and how he can break apart a defense with his legs, once he learns to use that to complement him being a dangerous throwing quarterback as well, that's when the offense is really going to open up for the Chicago Bears. And that's when we're going to see an offense that I think has just so much potential in the room that it has to grow in. And so when you look at just those weapons, the running back room that we have, Justin Fields is going to have time now. And like I said, don't judge him too harshly when it's not there initially to start the season. But, one of the kind of key things that I've been talking about and pushing here is that it's going to take time. It may take to about a month and a half into the season to where we really start seeing this team firing, the chemistry there, everything on all cylinders, and as well as Luke Getsy completely trust opening up that playbook. But with us hopefully going to the pass more often, having solid pass protection, having weapons now on offense, Luke Getsy's going to open up that system. Justin Fields is going to have time to develop and trust in that system and trust in his line. And once that muscle memory goes and he realizes, no, I am safe to look downfield and go through my progressions, we're going to see Justin Fields grow exponentially, I think, as a quarterback and as a passer in this upcoming season. When you look at where I want everybody to track it. Track where Justin Fields is as a passer on week 1, and then let's come back and talk about where he is on week 17. And I guarantee, at least my hope is, and I hope I'm not, placing too much faith in that. My hope is that we're talking about a player that has grown so much as a passer that now he's that complete modern day quarterback, or the new prototype quarterback that can make plays with his legs, that can make plays with his arm, and that has the weapons needed and the running game in line to support him, and an offensive coordinator as well, that we're looking like a very formidable offense towards the back end of that season. That's my thoughts. That was the last voicemail, but we got another a text message. This one's from Noble, and he says this. Hi, my name is Noble, and I disagree with your Trevor Gibson take. If you look back at the stats, he was the most double-team player last year, and I think he was double-teamed because he was the only player that did anything on the line, and he had 7 sacks the year before. Now, I think that 7 sacks the year before can be a little misleading. Keep in mind that coincided with Robert Quinn breaking a sack record, and so, therefore, defenses were so heavily focused on Robert Quinn, and he was such a monster in that season, that, yeah, it opened up things for the other edge to do some things. And that's not to say that Travis Gibson still doesn't have tons of talent, because he does. Travis Gibson has tons of talent and tons of potential, but you have to start seeing that potential realized. And when I said the thing about Travis Gibson and him maybe being on notice or maybe losing his position or maybe not being a Chicago Bear after a couple of years, it was strictly the fact of, if he doesn't continue to progress, right, and it comes up for a contract, we know that Ryan Poles goes value. And if he feels he can get better value, whether that player puts up the same numbers or not, if he feels he can get better value out of a player, especially looking at the fact that the Bears are probably one of their key positions to address next year in the draft with all the picks that they have, is going to be an edge, right? That it could force Travis Gibson on his way out. But let me be clear, that's not an indictment of me saying that Travis is terrible. That's not me saying that Travis doesn't have potential. That's to say that he is on notice to the fact that we need to see that. Now, with the additions that we made on the interior defensive line this offseason, Travis is going to be in a much better position to be able to make things happen out on the edge, because we're going to be bringing that pressure up the middle. And so I hope that we're talking about Travis Gibson shining and dazzling and showing what he can be on that edge with a overall more solid defense, especially when you look at what we've added as far as just having the coverage that we have, the linebacking cover. We went out and got one of the best, if not the best, linebacker in coverage in Tremaine Edmonds this offseason. And you look at already what we have on the secondary. And so being able to have that better pressure coming from the interior defensive line, Travis Gibson and Dominique Robinson, to a degree as well, is going to get all the opportunity in the world to show and prove what they can do on that defensive line. And I, for one, hope that they do it. Let me be clear. Never am I going to hope that a player that the Chicago Bears brought in is not going to turn into something. I want as many homegrown players as possible. I want the players on this team to succeed. And Travis does have tons of potential. But you can only wait on potential so long while you're trying to make moves. And his ceiling, maybe it's not as high as some potential picks you can go out there and get, but eventually he has to start coming, because eventually that bill is due. And that bill is due in the fact of having to give a player a contract extension. And if you're still asking tons of questions and you have players that you feel you can get in the draft that are going to bring better value initially on a more friendly deal, the writing may be on the wall. But Travis Gibson let me be clear, Travis Gibson's going to have all the time and opportunity in the world to show what he can do. And I, for one, hope that he does it. I'm not going to bet. I'm not going to hope. I always think that that's weird when fans of a team hope for the downfall of a player just so they can be right. That's not me. When I bring up a player that I feel could lose their position or could be on their way out, that's because they don't perform. I hope that he performs. I hope that he brings it together. I hope that he comes in and shows us tons of what we need to see on that edge position, because then I want him to be here. And then he solidified that position. Let's hope that he does. But that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bear Central. Also, make sure you guys get in voicemails for Bobby and C-Dub. They hold down the mailbags on Saturday. I'll tell you guys how to get that in a second. But you guys can follow us, Shy Bear Central, on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you're going to leave a text message and our voicemail for a mailbag episode tomorrow, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.